Here's how you can download the Key Stage 2 resources that enable you to calculate value added for your pupils. Here's how you can download the resources from Capita and install them as mark sheets and reports on your PC. First thing you'll need to do is get hold of the resources. You can ask your SIM support unit to do that, or if you've got access, you can go to Capita's My Account website, where at this address you'll find this page, and within this page is a link to the very latest version of the Key Stage 2 resources. I do recommend that you get hold of the latest versions. Capita do update them in line with changes to DFE policy on a very regular basis. So usually within a few days of the DFE changing their methodology or their processes in some way, Capita will have updated this page and they will have an updated version of these resources. So that the resources don't get automatically updated, you have to come to either this page or ask your local SIM support unit to do this for you. There's the link to the very latest version. You'll see if I click on that link, it gives me an option to save that file on my local system. I've already done that, so I've saved it to my desktop because I know the desktop's easy for me to access. There's the file that I've saved. It saves it as a zip file in the first instance, and I've unzipped that file to here. And if I look inside it, you should see that there are at least two files in there, and they contain the templates from which we're going to create a mark sheet, and they also contain a report that's going to give us a breakdown of the value-added measures and the expected progress measures that we've got in our system. So once we've downloaded that, once we've unzipped the file there to the desktop in my case, go into SIMS and go up to Routines, Data In, Assessment and Import. Then navigate to wherever you've unzipped that file to. In my case, it was the desktop. There it is. And there's the file I'm going to import. It's the templates, the latest version of the templates there. I'll click Open and click Next. And click Next again. So just accepting the defaults there. And it comes up with two templates that it's now going to install. You need both of them, so put a tick against both of them and click Finish. Are you sure? Yes, we are. So this will go away now and it'll import these templates. Be warned, on a slower system, this can take a few minutes, so don't worry if nothing seems to be happening. Sometimes you get a not responding message like that one there. Again, don't worry about that. It is doing something. It will eventually come back up with a report to say that it's completed the imports, and then we can proceed. And there we go, this message pops up. Basically, it's telling us that it's finished. It is just worthwhile scrolling down to the bottom of this activity log and just making sure that the last two statements say the following templates were successfully imported. Just occasionally we can have a problem which stops the import proceeding, but so long as you've got these two templates successfully imported, we're fine. So once that's done, you can close this screen. And we're going to go now to Focus, down to Assessment, and down to Template. This is behind the scenes, if you like, in Assessment Manager. Every mark sheet has a template behind it, and we've just imported a set of templates that will create these special mark sheets for us. The templates all begin with the initials CAS, so I'm going to type in CAS here, and then click on Search to find those templates. You could scroll down if you wanted to. So there's two of them. I don't know if you're used to using templates, but what we do is use a template to create a mark sheet. And in this particular case, we're going to create mark sheets for Year 6 pupils. So I'm going to do that for both of these templates. So I'll click the first one there, the APS calculator, and I'll go to section 3, which is mark sheets. And I can click the link there, or I can scroll down to section 3 using the scroll bar. And once I'm in section 3, you see there are no mark sheets currently created from this template. Not surprisingly, we've only just imported it. So I'm going to create a new one by clicking that new button, and then I'll click one based on the whole of Year 6. So that was choosing year group from the menu and clicking on Year 6 there. And apply that. And that's all we need. Usually, even if you've got a two-form entry school, it does make more sense to view Year 6 as a whole sheet of paper, if you like, with all 60 pupils on, or 40 pupils, or whatever it is. So I'll save that now, click that Save button, and that generates the mark sheet for us. So now we have an extra mark sheet on our system. I'm just going to do the same again for the Attainment and Progress mark sheet. Same idea, go to section 3, Mark Sheets, create a new mark sheet, again for the same one for year 6. Apply and save. And now we have 2 extra mark sheets on our system. So if I go into the mark sheets now, through the usual route, focus, assessment, mark sheet entry. Again, I could scroll down to mark sheets that begin with CAS, but if I type in CAS into the template name there and click on search, that takes me straight to them. So with these mark sheets, we have to do them one by one. We have to do the Key Stage 1 APS calculator first, and then we can go into the Key Stage 2 Attainment and Progress mark sheet there. So let's have a look at the Key Stage 1 APS calculator first. And what this one should do is bring up a list of all our Key Stage 1 results for our current year 6s. So these are current year 6s, and this is what they achieved way back when we were still doing levels and sub-levels. But there's their reading, writing, and maths teacher assessments. And all we need to do on this mark sheet is press the calculate button here. I'm going to do that. What it does is it works out certain measures for us, but the 2 important ones are these last 2. The average point score, this is the old, remember the old APS scores that we used to have at Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2? Well, this is the old average APS score again. But what it then does is it converts that into what the DFE call a prior attainment group. So everybody who got an average point score at Key Stage 1 of 20 is put into this prior attainment group 22. If you got 12, you're put into prior attainment group 11, and that's nationally. So anybody in your school who's got 12 points gets put into prior attainment group 11. All you need to do here now is press the save button to make sure those red numbers turn to black. Now if I close this mark sheet down and go back to the other mark sheet, the other CAS mark sheet, again type in CAS there and either pressing enter or clicking search. So this is the second stage. If I double click on here, what we've got now is we've got the Key Stage 1 APS values down there, and we've got the prior attainment group. Now at this stage and for this group of pupils, we haven't yet imported their results from the NCA Tools website. But the next step, if you don't have any actual live results for this group of Key Stage 2 pupils, is to go to the NCA Tools website and download them in the normal way. I'm going to do that offline now, and I'll come back to you in a minute. Okay, here's the same mark sheet with some data that I've put in as though I'd downloaded this from the NCA Tools website. Notice that because I've made this data up, I've not been very good at making it up. I've basically just concentrated on bringing down the scaled score. I've not brought down teaching assessments, teacher assessments, or any of these other columns because they're not immediately relevant in the calculation. When you do this, you'll probably find there's a lot more data on here. But nevertheless, once you've got some kind of scaled scores on here, you can press the calculate button, and when you do, you get a wealth of information on here. I'll just quickly explain what we've got here. We've got the prior attainment group. From the prior attainment group, it calculates what the estimated score is. This is based on national averages. So this says that everybody who got into prior attainment group 22, nationally, on average, using the 2017 data, they got 110.48 as their scaled score. And of course, there's the actual scaled score for our pupil here, 102. So as well as these columns here, the key figure there is this, the value added, the progress figure for reading for this one individual pupil. So the national average for pupils starting at the same point as Laura here was 110.48. Laura actually achieved 100.2, therefore her value added is minus 8.48. And this mark sheet then continues for writing, where there is no average as such, and for maths as well. When you do the writing, the value added, the difference, the progress, this column here, is based on the teacher assessment. So if you enter a teacher assessment in here, one of these teacher assessments, for example, and press calculate, what the system does is it assumes that everybody who got a GDS had the equivalent of 113 as a scaled score. Everybody who got expected standard is given an equivalent of 103 as the scaled score. So the progress, therefore, is still the difference between the estimated for everybody in that prior attainment group and what the calculated is based on the formula that translates GDS to 113 and EXS to 103. And it creates the progress figure in that column there. Maths happens in exactly the same way. And again, there's the value added figure for individual pupils. The first thing to do here is perhaps put the summary column on, which will immediately give you an average figure here. Now that average is the value added score for your current year sixes. So on average, this particular group made 3.02 points, scaled score points, more than the national average. So a good positive value added, for example, for maths there. If you scroll a little bit further along here, you'll see the various measures appearing. So the first column's in green and red. The green columns represent pupils who've achieved the expected standard, and the red columns represent the pupils who've not achieved the expected standard. I've got some gaps here because I've got test data here and everybody's been given a writing grade. But it gives us, so we get a green Y there if they've achieved the expected standard in reading, in this column, in SPAG, GPVS, in this column, in writing in this column, and in maths in this column. And again, the column you'll want to really investigate is this one, which gives us the combined reading, writing, and maths standard met figure. Now that will only have a green Y in it if there is a green Y in the all three of reading, writing, and maths. And again, you can use these columns. If you're used to using Assessment Manager, you'll know that if you right-click on a column, you can show the grade distribution. So I know that 89% of my pupils achieve the expected standard in reading. If I go to this final one, the all three, reading, writing, and maths one, and do the same analysis, then it's not so good. Only 3.39% of my pupils achieved the expected standard in all three subjects. And the final column here, the one that's got the blue Y's in there, is the higher standard. At the moment, I think it's set to 110. So this identifies pupils who've got 110 or more as a scaled score, again, in reading, in SPAG, in writing, and in maths. And the final column identifies pupils who've achieved this higher standard in all three subjects in the same way as the expected standard in that column. So there you go. That's a really quick guide to what you can do in a mark sheet. But also part of this system are a set of reports. So once I've created this mark sheet, once I've pressed the calculate button, as I have done there to populate all these yeses and nos, once I've clicked the save button, and this is the important bit, I need to save it like this, I can now run a report. The report is also included as part of the files that you downloaded, and you'll need to import the latest version now. So I'm going up to Reports and Import, click on Open, and navigate again to, in this case, to my desktop, where I unzipped that file earlier, and you'll see there is a file there called a Report Definition, RPTDef file, and that holds all the information that SIMS knows to create a new report for us. So I'll click on Open there. Status is currently pending until I make sure there's a tick there and click on Import, at which point it goes back to imported, and we've done that. We now have the latest version here. So now I can run that report. If you've never run a report before, here's how you run a report in SIMS. You go to the Reports menu and you click Run Report. And then it comes up with a list of all the reports that your school has created. Go into Focus here, double click on it, and then within that, double click on Student. The reports that we've just imported, again, all begin with the initials CAS. So you can either scroll down or you can start to type in CAS. There we go. That's the one we imported, and you can see there that the date it corresponds with today's date there. To run one of these reports, you just double click on it, and up it pops. So in effect, well, a couple of things. The effective date there defaults to today's date. And that means that in this section here, where we pick our year sixes, it will pick the year sixes as they are today. And of course, if you've got a different population of year sixes than you had back in May, you might want to change that date to reflect a date in May, and that will just pick up whoever's in year six on that particular date in May when they took the exams. I'm going to assume though that my year six hasn't changed. Just going to check that year six is currently ticked, and it usually is, but it's worth checking. And then just click on OK. With a little bit of time here, what it's doing is pulling information from various parts of SIMS, and it's also going to put the output into Microsoft Excel, into a worksheet in Microsoft Excel. So this might take 30 seconds or even a minute, depending on the speed of your system. The screen will flicker a few times like this one's doing. Eventually you should see Excel come up like we just seen there. Up it comes, it will flicker again a few times, and then it comes up like this. I'm just going to maximize this. Now yours, when it comes up, may well have a little message somewhere along the top here that says enable macros. If you get a message that says enable macros, and it's usually on this top line here, then make sure you click the button and do enable macros. Otherwise you won't see any data. But you can see here what it comes up with. It comes up with all this really useful information, giving you a breakdown of all the pupils, and then each of these groups of pupils, the typical groups of pupils, the vulnerable groups, the groups you have to monitor, whatever, are all listed down here. Here's your headline figures: expected standard for all pupils in reading, SPAG, writing, and maths. And you can really tell that I made all this data up. So hopefully your figures look a lot better than that. And the final one here is the percentage combined figure: reading, writing, and maths. You'll also notice that Capita provided the national averages. These are the 2017 national averages. At some point in 2018, as soon as the DFE released the breakdown for all these subgroups, Capita will update this report, and you can download the updated version and install it just as I've shown you. So this is a really quick demonstration of how to install and use the Key Stage 2 resources. Thank you.